First, I'll talk about the hearing in front of my magistrate. So, the hearing is for 11. I got there 15 minutes early. Alex waited until 2 minutes to 11 to show up. And right off the bat, I could tell with that magistrate that, of course, he's being so nice to the owner because he's a landlord. And for anybody who doesn't know, Pennsylvania is a landlord-friendly state, meaning there's not a whole lot of laws that help or benefit tenants, but quite a bit for landlords. In Pennsylvania, your landlord can raise your rent every month, and there's no laws preventing them from doing that. Not a damn thing. But when it comes to security deposit returns, there is specific laws that state that the deposit needs to be returned in 30 days, and if there are deductions, it needs to be in writing. Now, I don't know about anyone else. I'm 56 years old, and yes, I moved out of apartments in my life. I moved enough in my life, and even if, say, a situation arose and maybe a new apartment, I had to wait a few days for it, maybe some minor thing needed to be fixed, not anything major. Um, I never had a previous landlord deduct those few days from my security deposit. I am not kidding when I say I only forfeited a security deposit one time, and that was willingly, and that was an apartment that I had over Carmen's Bakery in Hazleton. Was a roach-infested motel. I call it a roach motel because it was disgusting. When the sun went down, the roaches came out. I never used my oven. They would be flying out from under the oven, and I used to use my Swiffer wet jet and kill them all and squish them. I never used that oven. I was terrified I was going to be baking cockroaches in my food. They didn't go in my bedroom because I used to sprinkle Ajax, the powder like for bathtubs or sinks. I used to sprinkle along my doorway, and the roaches got smart that that's poisonous to them, and so they would not come into my bedroom. It was a very frustrating place to live. And then to top it all off, like literally the roaches were in my bathroom, in the ceiling in my bathroom, in my shower ceiling. I mean, you couldn't get away from the disgusting things. Finally, the deciding factor to get the hell out of Dodge spurred the moment that my oldest son just packed my stuff up and literally 2 trips with his car back and forth to Freeland, I was out. The deciding factor was my granddaughter stayed over for the weekend, and she was a little girl then. And I had a small TV with a VCR built into it for her because she used to like to watch some of the VCR tapes I still had. And I remember I asked her if she wanted a drink. I had it on a little end table for her so she could have a drink. Well, I was sitting at my table and I just happened to look over and there was a huge ass roach about this damn big on her cup. And if she had been watching the movie, that roach could have got in her mouth. That was it. I ran over, knocked it out of her hand, terrified her for a moment, but I explained why I did it. And within 2 days, her dad, my son, moved me the hell out. Just, yeah, that was not worth it. And that was a time that I didn't even tell them I moved. They called me several days later after they seen my name was off the mailbox. I put the key in the mailbox. The apartment was empty. Just, yeah, it was a disgusting place to live. And I often wondered about the restaurant below. And are people eating roaches? Because if they were that bad upstairs, I'm thinking they were just as bad downstairs. But I don't know. So anyway, so Alex said that for the 10 days that we were at the apartment, he prorated the security deposit, deducting money from the security deposit. Now, Okay, maybe I am stupid, or maybe people just don't explain things and assume that you know. Um, when we were at the hearing March 31st, okay, we were told we had 10 days that we had to leave unless we were going to appeal. And that had to be put in writing, paperwork had to be filled out. We were not told we had to pay rent for those 10 days. Now, I am sorry, but I find that rather redundant. You have to move, but yet you have to pay rent. Who in their right mind is going to pay rent if you're moving? Okay, I get it was non-eviction, and I mean, I'm grateful for that, but still, common sense tells a lot of people, well, if I have to move, my money is going to go into moving. I'm not going to pay you rent and you want me to move. It's either one or the other. Like you don't get both. So I was never in that kind of a situation where I was expected to pay this person rent, but this person is telling me I have to leave the apartment. I've never been in that situation before. I never had a non-lease renewal hearing. If, like a lease wasn't going to be renewed or something, all I basically had to do years ago was like start looking prior if the landlord maybe had a family member who was going to be renting it or something. And, I basically just like, okay, you know, I have, so many days in between here and here. I have to wait a couple of days until I can move into the apartment. I still got my security deposit back. Nobody ever said, well, okay, I deducted this from 600, yada, 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 because um, I never had a person who was so petty. But Alex is not your mom and pop landlord. Alex is a corporate landlord, a corporate realtor organization that he is part of. It's all business, and that is all they care about. I was very pleasantly surprised to find out that only two of the apartments are rented. One has seen its fair share of people looking at it, and whatever it is about the apartment, nobody wants to pay 950 plus heat. That may be the fair market rent for the area, but apparently there are things about the apartment people don't like. And so currently he's having a very hard time renting one apartment out. I'm kind of hoping that it's ours. I really truly am. I don't know, it would just make me feel good if I knew in some way that that jerk just, can't can't rent it. So anyway, so the bottom line is, while I did get back $80, because he said he had to quote unquote clean stuff out of the basement that I left behind, which I pointed out, hey, there was a lot of junk down there when we moved in. Nobody's name was on it. The other landlord never got rid of it. Um, how dare you assume that this junk is all mine because I used the pantry? Anything that was left in the pantry wasn't mine. I was not the only person who worked at Dial and had laundry detergent. I was not the only person who had stored stuff back there. There was a whole mess of canning stuff, jars, and everything that was there when we moved there. And I said to him, you have a lot of nerve assuming because we were the first ones out that that's all our belongings. No, sorry. You just can't assume that. So he had to give me back the $80. The check for 280, my bank could no longer cash. So essentially, I lost $240 because I owed him money. And like the magistrate said, well, you can't live anywhere rent free. And I looked at him and I said, well, I'm sorry, Your Honor. I said, but I've never dealt with a petty person like this before. I said, I've lived in enough Hazelton's apartments here, I said, in town, to be able to say that no landlord ever was so petty that I didn't get my security deposit back. They looked at the cleanliness, they looked for damage, but if something happened and I need a few more days, they didn't deduct it. I said, so forgive me, I said, but this is the first time I'm dealing with a petty jackass. And so now basically it's over. It ended. It didn't go the way I had hoped. I really had hoped I would get the 600, but again, like I said, he always sides with Len. I mean, I do understand, basically he followed the law, and I do get that. But my experience should just be like a warning for people about how nitpicky and petty now that everything is. Like, really, really, because never in my life did I ever experience that. And that is the honest to God's truth. So, I'm thinking, well, then I know the other tenants got less back than me. Because if I lost 240 and they stayed a week or two after, they didn't get anything if they got $100. And that literally was kind of what I was afraid of. And I thought, that there's nothing on those papers that we got from that hearing that really truly said that, we were liable for any rent for those 10 days. Because I really got the magistrate puzzled when I said, well, what would the rent have been, Your Honor? I said, we never signed the lease. He never even showed me a new lease. I said he was talking about jacking the rent to 900. The previous landlord had a rent at 600. So even if I knew I had to pay him rent, what would I have been paying him? Well, 600. I go, and how would I have known that if nobody told me that or it wasn't in writing? How would I, just off the top of my head, known that, Your Honor? He didn't know what to say. I said, you said nothing about that at the hearing on March 31st, which is true. He didn't. There's nothing in my paperwork stating that we're responsible for that rent. There's no judgment against us, nothing, nothing. So, maybe things like this really need to be specifically spelled out in black and white and discussed in black and white at these hearings, or some people are going to find themselves in a situation where, yeah, you're not going to get any kind of a security deposit back because nobody bothers to tell you that while you're in the process of moving, you're supposed to pay rent. Most people will be like, oh, let them have the security, I don't care. But I was counting on that security deposit for gas money months ago to move down to South Carolina. That was going to be earmarked for transportation for gas. And that is part of, well, a good part of the problem of why we couldn't get down to South Carolina. So that Monday that I was at the hearing, I came home. I was just aggravated, but I was like, whatever. But then I was also disgusted too. I was like, okay, so I'm in limbo. What do I do? You know, Techie and I even talked the one day, and I said to her, I said, I love it down here, which I do. I love, seeing nature and everything, but when you don't have a car, it's boring. It gets boring. It is next to impossible to like walk anywhere. And, we were just talking between ourselves that day actually, later on in the afternoon. And I said to her, it's pretty bad. I said that I asked the pharmacy where I get my scripts filled, do they deliver? And she said, yes, but not here. It's too far out of the way. And I'm like, really? Like in a car, it's maybe 7 minutes away from the pharmacy. I'm like, okay, whatever. So, you got to pay $10, $15 to have somebody running you down the hill so you could go get a prescription. Like, oh God, this is just crazy. So I mean, feasibly, like, yes, moving to a state where I know I have a place to rent that is affordable, that I have contact with people that, I can go to and that I can essentially get a ride from if I need to go somewhere, set up something, do something. So it's not like I'm going to be dropped in Kansas and boom, that's it. Not a soul around for miles. Um, it may be rural, but it actually is not that far. Um, I want to say maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes actually from from, like stores and anything like that. I think Ronnie looked on a map the one time and said it's like 5 miles away from like store. So, like the feasibility of moving out of state definitely makes sense. There's nothing I could afford around here or anywhere to the best of my knowledge in PA, and I'm not waiting a year or two for a public housing apartment. I do not want to be here for the winter. And this is where my mom's cousin comes in. Ellen is a retired nurse. She's 77. She lives in Arizona. She has a condo. Um, she volunteers with the food pantry, and there was a big homeless issue in Arizona. And it was getting so bad that hospitals were actually opening up wings to let people go so they could be out of the heat, be cool, be able to take a shower, eat, things like that. So there's a push now, she was telling me, with agencies, and they're trying to get landlords on board. And finally, some landlords are starting to come on board and starting to actually rent to some of these people who do have fixed incomes, but, like couldn't afford some of these rents before. And there's churches involved in everything. And she said it's wonderful how little by little, slowly but surely, they're reaching out to these people and trying to get them off the streets and into their own places. And she said, so what are they doing in PA? I said, nothing. Zilch. Nada. They're not doing the darn thing, I said, in PA. I said, and why would they? PA is a landlord-friendly state. They're all about the landlord. They don't give a shit. I said, who's homeless, who's sleeping, who's squatting, whatever. They only care about the money. And I said, so Pennsylvania, I said, wouldn't care. I said, unless it got so bad that literally there's like hordes of homeless, like going up to people's cars in traffic and yanking people out of cars and just destroying stores and burning homes and things. That then, maybe then, they would do something. But I said, really, in all honesty, they don't. And I said, what really bugs me is this quote unquote rental assistance, right? Well, first of all, you had to have been eligible to collect unemployment. If you are not eligible for it, it does not help you. That program doesn't do a damn thing for you. So, like in theory, even months ago when we were out Red Roof and Ronnie inquired about it, um, they would pay like the rent if he got a place or something, help him with that, but not with moving costs. And I was like, okay, so if you were going to rent a place but in a different state, they won't help you? No. And I'm like, well, that's a crock of crap because if you read about it online, I seen where it said that they, help people with moving costs and everything. And I'm like, well, that's just so much misinformation, or maybe only in certain states. I don't know. But I thought, well, okay, so they're always squawking about all this money, this money. But there's a lot of people that are homeless that are not eligible for that. They weren't collecting unemployment. Someone like me isn't eligible for any of that money. I wasn't collecting unemployment. My son did, not me. So in the end, you know, Ellen said to me, when would you like to get down there? I said, hopefully, I would like to get down there by the very end of August, maybe first week of September at the latest. And she said, how much do you need? Well, I said, considering gas has gone up since April. I said since, April or May, in that general time frame. I said, and, I have different quotes. I said, I won't really know until Megan actually leaves PA. I'll have a really accurate estimate um, of what, a moving vehicle is going to cost. Now, where we're going to have a little bit extra cost also is we don't have driver's licenses. So we need to actually pay someone or find someone willing to actually rent it for us. We give them the money to pay for the rental and then pay them to actually drive us down. No, unloading, loading, anything like that. Strictly for driving purposes to get us from PA to South Carolina. Um, so like I said, you factor in gas. Um, it probably about 2,500, 3,000. It's going to run us. Now, we do, have some money, but we also realize that, hey, we are going to be short. So Ellen asked me, for my mailing address, whatever church she is involved with out in Arizona. She said that, they have been helping people who are either leaving Arizona to go with family in other states or to, you know, if they were buying a home in another state or whatever. And she had said, I am going to talk to people and see, she said, if we can't get you the money you need to be able to leave in a couple weeks. And I said to her, well, if you want to go on Facebook and set up a GoFundMe or something, I said to her, you're more than welcome to. I'm not doing it, but you could. Oh, honey, she said, I don't trust Facebook. And sorry, dear, she said, but people my generation really don't go on Facebook all that much. No, she said, you're probably going to be receiving checks. That's why I wanted your address. Now, I did actually recently install Cash App because when I went to cash that check that Alex had originally given me, um, when we were in Milton, my bank would not cash it because it was dated for back in April. So I asked him, would he be able to do an EBT through my bank or PayPal? And he said, well, what about Cash App? Well, Cash App actually worked out really, really good because I was actually able to link it to my bank account. So what I was thinking of doing is if I actually am fortunate and I do actually receive money, I can deposit it into my account and then I can instantly transfer it over to Cash App. I requested the debit card that goes with Cash App so that um, I would actually be able to essentially um, little by little withdraw the money. They have a list of no fee ATMs and certain ones that they don't charge a fee for. And as the time got closer, I would be able to essentially have the cash on hand and we would then be able to like go with whoever is going to be driving us to reserve it and everything will be paid. Um, so, I mean, I feel bad that um, she's doing that because it's it's hard for me to, I guess, rationalize accepting help like that from maybe people that I don't even know. It it's not that it makes me feel bad. It just, I don't know, it bothers me because I always prided myself on being self-sufficient and that. And I don't know, a part of me thinks like, wow, does, my family feel like I'm incapable of doing this on my own? Well, from a financial perspective, they're probably looking realistically, her and maybe a few of her friends and thinking, yeah, financially, honey, you are. You really are. Um, I mean, we'll be grateful for any help that we do get. Um, so that is like what is going on behind the scenes as far as us being able to get the extra funds that we need to actually, get everything in place to go down south. Um, like I said, I couldn't count on that 600. That is done. So it's going to be an issue of gas money, and probably whatever the difference is with what we have and what it's actually going to cost for a truck rental plus a driver. Now, we did look into quotes for moving companies, and oh my God, they are so technical based on square footage, and there's also scams going on now with fake moving companies who come take your stuff and you're screwed. They're fake, actually. So like if you maybe forget like, oh, I had two dressers, they might charge you an extra $200 because you forgot about two dressers. And it's like, oh my God. And that can run you about 3,000 to 5,000, depending literally on how much square footage you use up in the vehicle. I guess if you're rich, that's probably the easy way to go because you don't have to do all the sweat equity work, to unload and load and everything else and that. But definitely not something that we could afford to do. So we're going to have to go the cheaper route. Um, yeah, gonna be, requiring us loading up and unloading, but you know what? It works out probably to be about 1,500 to maybe $2,000 cheaper to do it that way. Also, too, I do need to consider also money for the internet to be on, for electric to be on, and those are things, I need to consider also once we get there. So we are talking about a little bit of a pretty penny. But again, someone, messages me and, asks me about it. And she says to me, well, I don't want you in PA come the fall into the winter because I know last year was bad. And I just don't want to see you stranded and you have no vehicle and nowhere to go. Um, which basically, I don't want to be in a situation like that either. Um, but it is what it is. So I'm gonna stay positive about it and say that, um, we have a really good feeling about it. I mean, we have been doing a lot more planning in getting there than we actually did last time. Now, the only thing I am unsure about is my cats because um, I don't relish the thought of one of us having to be in the back of a moving van with either of them. It's going to be hot, no air, and even when we make periodic stops, they're going to need water. Um, and they're probably just going to be a mess on the way down because you're talking anywhere, depending on traffic, from a 6 to maybe 8 hour drive. So I don't know. Is there anything that I could maybe, safely give my cats to maybe relax them, that they could sleep on the drive, which really would be beneficial for them, might help with like calming them down so they wouldn't be so stressed. I would be more worried about Feisty than Oreo because of the separation last time. I really think a move, unless she sees him, is going to really